on this another Family Foundation Friday with my good friend and co-host David Walls. David, thanks again for joining us.
Greg, good to be with you.
I understand we have several different venues that we put out on our the videos and the podcasts and everything. I understand last week we want to give a shout out to Representative Matt Lockett, who joined us and did a great job.
Yes, we really appreciate him, and we've seen a lot of folks watch that recording. So we're thankful for those that are enjoying the content and sharing it and following both the Family Foundation and Love and Lordship. So. That was fun to have Representative Lockett on last week.
We'll have him back on, and probably some others from time to time as different issues come up. But do thank you to Matt, Representative Matt Lockett, for that. I've known him for a long time, so I've known him as a friend. But he is our state representative, and we want to honor that. Now, yesterday also was a special day, not just in our state, but across the nation, the National Day of Prayer. And you were at the Capitol, right? Give us a little update on that.
Yeah, so 73rd Annual National Day of Prayer. And I remember last year being there, Greg, and you prayed for families. They were very, I was blessed to get to lead the prayer for families yesterday at the state Capitol. Good group that showed up.
If they did a step up, that's a step up, man. That's
I don't know about that. Our good friend Randy Adams. Was there, and he prayed after me, and I told him before, brother, I'm glad you're praying after me and not before me.
Yeah, exactly.
Just
they always have good people and a good showing. 100, 150 people there in the Rotunda.
You know, and as I said, just encouraging to know that there's folks all across this Commonwealth, events, across the nation, folks crying out to the Lord for our nation. And even internationally, as we shared, some of the National Day of Prayer events with our supporters, and I had a pastor on our email list that I didn't even know that's from Kenya that reached out and was like, "We just want you to know that we're praying for you over in Kenya."
That's encouraging.
It is encouraging.
I mean, I've shared with you before. It's amazing when you start putting these things out and they start catching it. It'll multiply. I promise you, it'll multiply. The concern will be, how do I temper all of that so that we're continuing to stay on target with what we do? But they really are concerned. For so many years, the American church and the way of life has helped them, but they see a real decline in a lot of that, truthfully, and so they're praying for the church in America.
Yeah, one of the gentlemen that prayed and that spoke, Greg, yesterday was from Cuba at the Capitol, and his message was, essentially, this is still the greatest country. He came over here, couldn't speak any English, and has been here, I think, 24 years, he said, him and his family, but just a tremendous story of the opportunities and freedom this country's given him. But he essentially said, what I'm seeing now is reminiscent of some of the socialist policies and concerns that obviously has led Cuba, as he said, something like, I think, 30% of all Cubans have fled Cuba, over the time. So anyways, another reminder that the Lord's blessing has been so lavishly poured out on this nation, and it's something we can't take for granted.
Well, and the Lord also says, and He's always faithful, that if you turn away from me, if you turn over to, and in particular Romans, the sexual immorality, moving to the homosexual immorality, to depraved mind, my judgment is I will give you over to that. And we're seeing that. We are seeing it. So we've got to stand strong. We encourage our listeners to pray and to stand strong as well. Now, that was yesterday, David. Tomorrow is a big day in Kentucky. You might have heard, coming from Texas, you might have heard this little thing called the Kentucky Derby, right?
I was expecting you to wear your Derby hat here today, Greg.
No, a big bonnet or something. No, I don't. Yeah, I'm good enough with the blue, with the UK blue. I should have worn the blue and red one for U of L as well. It's what a lot of them do. But it's a big day. It's a big day. I'm excited. I've got friends. You've got friends that already here that are in the horse industry, and I've had discussions with them, David.
Yeah.
I like the horse industry. I love to watch them. They're beautiful. And you go to the farms, it's beautiful. But I hate what the casino and gambling industry is doing and will continue to do to them, as well as to marriages and families in the Commonwealth.
Well, sports in general.
That's exactly right.
We're just, more to say on that, and we've talked, but it's just...
Crack the door.
Yeah.
The flood opens up, right? And we've seen that so much. Again, we push a thank you out to Representative Matt Lockett, and we're going to have some more on over the weeks. People that have issues, and we're going to be preparing for that. Now, last week, David, we also talked about the DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. For those who don't know that, as if anybody doesn't, but some may not. DEI legislation. It didn't pass this year. That was very disappointing. It's tied very closely to the Black Lives Matter, the CRT, critical race theory, and the whole LGBTQ agenda.
It is.
It really is. And President Biden has taken another wacky, far extreme position on Title IX. Talk about that a little bit, David.
So this has been, if you've been following the news, the Biden administration has essentially proposed a rule to essentially rewrite Title IX and to turn essentially, a policy that provided opportunities for women across the board, in sports in particular, and to rewrite it in such a way to say that, biological sex essentially means gender identity, and really to open the door to the further transgender movement takeover of this ideology and rewriting the law in a way that no one would actually say that Congress intended the definition of sex to mean potentially the exact opposite of what it means. And so this has wide-ranging implications, but it's been encouraging to see how many folks are standing up and saying, there's been, I think, probably over 10 states that have joined different lawsuits already that have been filed against this. Kentucky and our Attorney General, along with the Attorneys General in Tennessee, have joined together with some other states that are fighting this. There's a lot of movement and activity on this.
Supreme Court actually wasn't it with Utah that had something to do along with those lines? Was there a case in Utah that dealt with that?
Yeah, I think
maybe not specifically Title IX, but you not allowing the crossover, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think that may have been on one of their laws dealing with protecting kids on the gender transition issue. If I'm remembering correctly. Look, there's a flurry of legal activity on this front, and a lot of it is centering around really the transgender movement and the ideology that it's attached to that. And it's really sad to see the President of the United States and his administration move forward to say, we're going to bend the law, we're going to bend a policy that's been in place for many, many years because of the radical transgender movement. And to essentially, open the door to men being able to play on women's sports teams. There's been states, Kentucky, 25 states, I believe, Greg, at least have passed laws protecting female athletes in their states from this nonsense. But the reality is, in fact, one of the other pieces of news on this, it was a couple weeks ago, but former UK swimmer Riley Gaines, probably the most well-known advocate now, standing up to save women's sports. She filed a lawsuit against the NCAA because of their continued unwillingness to set a common sense policy on this.
Like the NAIA did.
NAIA did. And Greg, we shared an opportunity with our supporters. The NCAA just held one of their big meetings where they discussed policy change and so forth. And we encouraged our supporters, as many others did, to reach out to the NCAA to encourage them to adopt a policy similar to what the NAIA did.
All the hard-fought and victorious rights of women, and specifically in women athletics, but there are other areas as well, and particularly that, are just thrown under the bus.
They are.
With this. You rewrite this, and it seems two things with that. First of all, I don't think if you're trying to win votes, I think you're going to lose a lot more women than you gain by the fringe of the transgender dysphoric issue. I think you are, and it's flying in the face of the science now, the long-term science that's coming out of Europe that has been doing this about 10 years ahead of us, is saying this was wrong. And you shared something with me that I hadn't heard about a group of anonymous psychologists in the UK, right?
And that have come out and essentially disavowed and said, we got it wrong. This is actually harming people.
Like a public apology, right?
Yeah. We're going to be sharing more about that. But,
as it comes to fruition.
Let me just share, Greg, I was, this quote, speaking of Riley Gaines, this was her response, and I think it really nails, because we've heard a lot, from this administration, the Biden administration, in the abortion context, and so much that they're standing up for women. right?
Yes.
For women's rights, women's reproductive rights, which is, completely
just like they stand for
Orwellian
Israel
language.
and Hamas.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do that, but they're doing the
It's
same thing.
Orwellian language, but I think Riley Gaines nailed it here, where she said the president and his administration can't act like they care about women or opportunities and then go out and wipe out women's protections under the country's landmark equality law for women.
You go.
And that's really what's at stake with these proposed laws, is essentially rewriting Title IX altogether. So I'm thankful for our Attorney General here, Coleman, who has joined in leading and trying to fight against this. Our good friends at Alliance Defending Freedom and a number of other organizations have also filed a lawsuit. The Biden administration can be in court for a good while on this issue.
Should be on it.
And they knew this, Greg. So that what tells you is they are so committed to this radical ideology that they're willing to put the protections of women at risk, and they're willing to deal with the fact that they're going to have to be in federal court in who knows how many different jurisdictions.
Well, and my point in saying that just like they stand, you were talking about, you can't stand for women and then destroy their equal rights victories.
Right.
You can't stand for Israel and then stand for Hamas. My point in all that is, I know politicians do this some, but man, they're not even straddling the fence. They're trying to be on both sides of the fence, which they can't do. And we got to see that. What we call that in Scripture is a lack of integrity, a lack of shalom. And it's not only going to cost them, it's going to cost our country.
Yeah.
And we've been seeing that. And so we need to remember that come election time, I know that whatever the other side offers is going to have issues as well, but that's just blatantly double-minded.
Look,
and trying to just buy votes.
This is
basically
an election year. This is a clear signal from this administration.
Yes, that's
that
it.
They are
That's my
going
point.
all in on the LGBT moral
But
revolution.
what is it costing them?
Right.
How do you do that? You can't. But the media will give them cover. So here in our little house of media, we're trying to say, recognize the duplicity in that and the lack of integrity in that in so many ways. Got another report that we're too familiar with each year, and that's Planned Parenthood's annual report. What do we find out from them? Abortion's got to be going down, right? Because since Dobbs, right?
No. And as you and I have talked, particularly in the states that don't have laws protecting unborn children, a number of states racing to expand abortion access in a variety of ways. So Planned Parenthood just released their 2023 annual report, and they are almost murdered 400,000 unborn children in 2023, which was an increase from 2022. And here's another number to ingrain in your memory. Almost $700 million in taxpayer funds, predominantly from the federal government. And so this is just another reminder of why we've got to continue to stand for life, and we've got to call out organizations that, while the media will say are about women's health, it's clear from their report, this is an organization that is dedicated to profiting off of taking the lives of unborn children, and increasingly also profiting off of the gender ideology movement as well.
And David, even though Dobbs has come down and Roe is overturned, that number of our dollars continues to increase, and therefore the number of babies that are killed.
Right.
So please be praying. Pray for them. Pray for the people. Pray against their ideology and all that. Primaries in 2.5 weeks. Where can they get information, David?
VoteKentucky.us. VoteKentucky.us. You can get a personalized primary voter guide. Encourage folks to be equipped and get out and vote.
Yeah, and we're up against it. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for your prayers. Thanks always to the Lord. Make it a great day, and God bless in the love and lordship of Christ. Thank you, David.
Good to be with you as always.
I'm Greg Williams, and you're listening